Welcome back to the Conspiracy Tapes, the podcast where we explore the world's most enigmatic places and uncover the truth behind the legends. I'm your host, Ryan Martin, and today we're venturing into one of Japan's most mysterious locations, a place where ancient volcanic fury created a landscape so dense and disorienting that it seems to exist outside our normal world. Aokigahara, the Sea of Trees, the Suicide Forest. Nestled at the base of Mount Fuji, this 35-square-kilometer expanse of woodland has captured imaginations worldwide, spawning countless urban legends, horror movies, and internet myths. But what's the real story behind this place? Today, we're going to separate fact from fiction, explore the genuine mysteries, and understand why this forest continues to fascinate and terrify people around the globe. So settle in, because we're about to take a journey through time and myth, from ancient volcanic eruptions to modern-day mysteries, uncovering the truth about one of the world's most haunting forests. If you're captivated by stories that blend history, mythology, and the unexplained, you're in the right place. For even more deep dives into ancient legends, unsolved mysteries, and the occult, check out Scoob, the AI-powered podcast app that curates the best shows for curious minds. Download Scoob from the App Store or Play Store and step into the shadows to see what secrets are waiting to unravel. To understand Aokigahara, we must first travel back nearly 1,200 years to witness one of the most dramatic geological events in Japanese history. Picture this: Mount Fuji, not the serene, snow-capped icon we know today, but a violent, erupting giant spewing torrents of molten lava across the landscape. This was the Jugan eruption, and it would fundamentally reshape the region forever. Continuous streams of lava cascaded down the mountain, solidifying layer upon layer, creating the foundation for what would become our mysterious forest. But here's where it gets interesting. This wasn't just any ordinary lava flow. The eruption created something called tree molds. As the lava flowed through existing forests, it would encase tree trunks, and when those trees eventually burned away or decomposed, they left behind perfect hollow spaces, tunnels and caves that snake through the hardened rock like nature's own underground highway system. Some of these formations became famous tourist destinations like the Fugaku Wind Cave and Narusawa Ice Cave. But many more remain hidden beneath the forest floor, creating a treacherous landscape riddled with unseen dangers. The Kuri-Ana crater line, which translates to ice holes, emerged during these same eruptions, characterized by channels that literally split apart and spewed curtains of fire into the sky. But perhaps the most dramatic transformation was what happened to a lake called Tsunami. According to historical accounts from the Kai governor to the royal court, this massive body of water was completely inundated with lava and split into two parts. Today, we know these remnants as Lake Shoji and Lake Saiko, part of the famous Fuji Five Lakes. What's fascinating is that despite being separated by several kilometers, these lakes maintain identical water levels, evidence of a submerged tunnel system still connecting them beneath the hardened lava. The complexity of these underground networks became tragically apparent when two divers exploring the nearby Oshino-Hakai ponds, 8 beautiful ponds formed by an earlier eruption, disappeared while investigating tunnel systems. Despite the pond being only 5 meters in diameter and 5 meters deep, they became disoriented in the vast underground maze and drowned. A robot had to be sent in the following day to recover their bodies. After the volcanic activity ceased, the landscape was utterly barren. A moonscape of solidified lava stretching from Mount Fuji's flank down to what remained of Tsunami. This type of lava couldn't retain water, but then something remarkable happened. About 4 centuries after the eruption, moss began to colonize the hardened lava. And moss, unlike the volcanic rock, could retain water. This was the beginning of Aokigahara as we know it. Seeds, likely carried by birds, settled into the moss beds. Around 900 years after the Jugan eruption, new trees began to flourish. The forest was saved from destruction when Mount Fuji erupted again during the Hoi eruption. But this time, the ash cloud drifted eastward toward what is now Tokyo, sparing the nascent woodland. This violent birth explains so much about Aokigahara's character today. The forest sits atop a foundation of caves, tunnels, and unstable ground that can shift unexpectedly. The terrain undulates unpredictably, camouflaging fissures and holes beneath overgrown roots and moss that seem to wrap around everything. It's this treacherous landscape, born from ancient fire, that sets the stage for all the mysteries that would follow. Now that we understand how this otherworldly landscape came to be, let's tackle one of the most persistent myths about Aokigahara, the legend that compasses go haywire within its depths. Picture this scene. You're standing at the edge of the forest, compass in hand, watching the needle point steadily north. You take a few steps into the woodland, and suddenly, chaos. The needle begins spinning wildly, leaving you completely disoriented in this maze of identical-looking trees. It's the stuff of nightmares, and it's been repeated so often that it's become accepted fact. There's just one problem: it's completely false. The genesis of this legend is actually quite understandable. The forest's volcanic composition does include iron ore and magnetite, minerals that theoretically could interfere with magnetic instruments. It's such a logical-sounding explanation that most people accept it without question. The fear factor is undeniable, too. In a forest where everything looks the same, and the terrain can shift unexpectedly beneath your feet, the idea that your primary navigation tool might fail is absolutely terrifying. But here's the reality. Compasses work perfectly fine in Aokigahara. With GPS technology readily available, this has been thoroughly tested and verified. The needle points true north throughout the forest without any unwarranted deviations. There are no mysterious zones where compasses fail, no areas of magnetic anomaly that will lead you astray. Occasionally, if you place a compass directly on the forest floor, the needle might wobble slightly due to local iron deposits, but even this rarely affects directional accuracy significantly. And here's the kicker: most people navigating the forest would carry their compass at chest height, far removed from any minimal ground-level magnetic interference. So, why does this myth persist? Because the truth about getting lost in Aokigahara is actually far more mundane and, in some ways, more terrifying than magical compass failure. The moment you step off the well-trodden tourist paths, you enter a world where every tree looks identical, where the ground can give way unexpectedly, where moss-covered rocks and roots create an endless pattern of similarity. Even experienced hikers can become disoriented just a few meters off the main path. It's not supernatural forces at work. It's the simple reality of a dense, uniform forest that naturally confuses the human sense of direction. Your compass works fine. It's your brain that gets scrambled. This myth of broken compasses is pure folklore, conjured up to enhance the forest's mystique rather than describe any reality. But it reveals something important about how legends grow around places like Aokigahara. Take a grain of truth, the forest's volcanic iron content. Add human fear of getting lost, and suddenly you have a supernatural explanation that's far more compelling than the mundane reality. Speaking of compelling myths, let's address another legend that's both more disturbing and, unfortunately, more believable than the compass story. This is the tale of wild dog packs roaming Aokigahara, subsisting on human flesh. Imagine this scenario. You're making your way through the forest when you hear a distant growling. Your first thought might be bears. They are known residents of the forest, though sightings are rare. But as you investigate, you discover it's a dog. Relief washes over you until you attempt to approach, and the dog crouches, growling more intensely. Then others appear from behind the trees, and you realize with growing horror that these aren't friendly strays. They're wild, and they're hungry. This terrifying image has been propagated by none other than official sources. Leaflets distributed by the Fuji police claimed that many bodies recovered from Aokigahara were mere skeletal remains or in advanced stages of decomposition, devoured by wild birds and dogs. When official law enforcement endorses a claim, it gains significant credibility. But, like the compass myth, this belief is based more on folklore than reality. Despite all the stories and official claims, there has never been a single verified sighting of wild dog packs in the depths of Aokigahara. Think about it logically. The forest environment, with its dense underbrush and rugged terrain, is barely hospitable for humans, let alone wild dogs. The scarce food resources pose a significant survival challenge. Even with hypothetical access to the remains of suicide victims, the numbers would be insufficient to sustain multiple packs of dogs. The mathematics simply don't work. Occasionally, dogs are spotted around the parking lots of tourist areas, but these tend to be sociable and pose no threat. They're benefiting from the surplus of food that visitors inevitably leave behind. Some people claim to have heard barking from within the forest, but ornithologists argue that certain birds can produce remarkably dog-like sounds. Writer Kurihara Toru, who has spent considerable time exploring Aokigahara, decided to put this legend to the test. He conducted a simple but effective experiment. He left supermarket-bought chicken and a video camera in the forest overnight. By morning, much of the meat was indeed gone, but the culprits weren't wild dogs. Instead, the footage revealed a field mouse, followed by an assault by giant ants. The reality is that numerous smaller forest-dwelling creatures and hordes of insects do consume remains found in the forest. Sometimes, disturbing discoveries are made where the lower part of a body is found separated from the upper portion, hanging among the trees. It's natural to wonder if animals pulling at the legs caused this detachment, but investigation reveals it's usually the decomposition process combined with gravity that causes this separation, not animal interference. As for bears, while their presence can't be entirely ruled out in such a vast expanse with minimal human activity in many areas, documented evidence remains elusive. Local advice includes carrying noise-making instruments like bells or radios to alert and ward off potential wildlife encounters, a prudent precaution in any wilderness area. The wild dog legend likely stems from a kernel of truth. Animals do consume remains found in the forest, but the leap from animals consume flesh to packs of wild dogs hunt humans is pure fiction. The forest simply doesn't provide a sustainable habitat for such predators. Now, let's delve into one of Aokigahara's more intriguing mysteries, the legend of phantom paths that supposedly exist beyond conventional maps. When you examine any standard map of the area, the main routes are clearly highlighted, predominantly situated within popular tourist locations. But according to local lore, there are additional clandestine pathways that remain invisible to official documentation. These so-called phantom paths have supposedly been omitted from historical records for various reasons. Some theorists propose these routes were perceived as too dangerous, prompting their removal from maps. Others suggest they simply became obsolete, overshadowed by modern development and changing usage patterns. But the most intriguing theory is more sinister. Perhaps someone intentionally obscured these paths to hide whatever mysteries lie at their terminus, preventing the public from discovering what exists deep within the forest. Could such a path lead to the mythical suicide village? Do they beckon travelers toward their demise? Are these routes mere illusions, appearing only to entice explorers deeper into the woods before vanishing, leaving them hopelessly lost? The truth, as is often the case with Aokigahara, is both more mundane and more fascinating than the legends suggest. Historical footpaths do indeed scatter throughout the forest's expanse. Their existence isn't questioned, and numerous paths have genuinely fallen out of favor and been reclaimed by the resilient woodland. The natural cycle of decay and regeneration in such an environment quickly erases lightly traveled routes, but traces of these bygone pathways are still discernible if you know what to look for. The land might carry subtle signs like a flattened passage compared to its surroundings, or a valley-like appearance with gentle embankments on each side, now hidden beneath a canopy of thriving trees. You might encounter weathered stone or wooden markers at junctions where these paths once met, now succumbing to rot and moss. Some of these routes can stretch intimidatingly wide, broad enough for vehicles to traverse before disappearing into the forest's heart. Their creation has a perfectly practical explanation rooted in Japan's pre-refrigeration past. During the Meiji era, before refrigerators became common in Japanese homes, ice was harvested from the forest's natural caves. To transport this ice efficiently, broad paths were developed to accommodate horse-drawn carts ferrying the frozen cargo for distribution throughout the region. As technology advanced and the need for such ice transport became obsolete, these pathways fell into disuse. Nature, relentless in its reclamation efforts, transformed these practical thoroughfares into spectral trails, phantom paths that go unnoticed at a casual glance, but invite intrigue the longer they're observed. These discoveries perfectly encapsulate the nature of Aokigahara's mysteries. What seems supernatural or sinister often has perfectly rational explanations rooted in history and human necessity. The phantom paths aren't conduits to mysterious villages or supernatural destinations. They're simply relics of a past era, gently reclaimed by the inexorable passage of time. Yet their existence adds another layer to the forest's maze-like quality. These old routes, partially overgrown and unmarked, can still lead modern visitors astray. They create the illusion of established paths while actually leading nowhere, adding to the very real danger of becoming lost in this natural labyrinth. Now, we must turn to the aspect of Aokigahara that has made it infamous worldwide: its association with suicide. This isn't a comfortable topic, but it's essential to understand the human tragedy behind the sensationalized headlines. The forest's reputation as a suicide destination is not merely a modern phenomenon or media creation. The Complete Manual of Suicide, a controversial publication, specifically suggests that in Aokigahara, one can vanish and remain undetected. This recommendation taps into a particular aspect of Japanese culture regarding shame and family honor. Many Japanese individuals who choose Aokigahara do so because they fear the disgrace their death might bring to their families. They prefer to disappear altogether, opting for a lonely end where their remains won't be discovered post-mortem. This desire for privacy reflects a wish for their final moments to be a solitary communion with nature, shielded from public scrutiny. However, the authorities have responded to this tragic phenomenon with systematic determination. Each year in October, as temperatures drop, search teams methodically comb the forest, typically finding 7 to 8 bodies during each expedition. Occasionally, they encounter individuals in the midst of attempting suicide who are taken into custody and extracted from the forest. The message these searches convey is powerful. Disappearing silently is no longer possible. The authorities are resolute in their mission to locate the vanished and will persist until they succeed. When the deceased are found, their bodies, which they imagined would rest undisturbed in the forest, are retrieved and returned to their families. This systematic approach has created unexpected consequences. The outcome has been so pronounced that the Fuji police station had to construct a separate facility to store discovered remains. Despite the determination and regularity of these search efforts, they have not significantly curbed the increasing rate of suicides in Aokigahara. For those intent on maintaining anonymity in death, careful measures are often taken. Some enter the forest without any form of identification or personal belongings. This lack of identifying material means that after summer's rapid decomposition, identifying a body becomes nearly impossible within weeks. Every found body undergoes a thorough investigation at the Fuji police station, regardless of whether it was a recent death or from long past. If a body is identified, it's swiftly returned to the family, who then faces the burden of burial costs. However, should the remains be unidentifiable, they remain at Fuji until arrangements for cremation can be made, a cost the local government must absorb. This creates a cruel financial dimension to the tragedy. A significant deterrent against being found is the financial impact on families. Identified bodies impose a burden on surviving family members, compelling them to bear burial expenses that can total up to 100,000 yen, roughly $1,000. This consideration becomes yet another factor influencing individuals who seek to remain undiscovered after death, desiring to prevent passing this financial strain onto their loved ones. The forest's very geography contributes to its tragic appeal. The dense canopy blocks out much of the sky, creating an environment where direction becomes meaningless and time seems suspended. The volcanic terrain, with its hidden caves and unstable ground, offers numerous opportunities for someone to simply vanish. But there's a profound irony in all of this. The very features that make Aokigahara seem like a place where one can disappear forever, the maze-like paths, the identical-looking trees, the disorienting terrain, also make it a place where people regularly become lost unintentionally. The forest doesn't distinguish between those who enter seeking to vanish and those who simply lose their way. This tragic reality forms the dark heart of Aokigahara's reputation. Behind every myth and legend lies this fundamental human sorrow, making the forest not just a place of mystery, but a location of profound sadness that demands our understanding rather than sensationalism. If you find these stories compelling and want to hear more, don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen. Your support helps us bring you more thoughtful explorations of history, myth, and the mysteries that shape our world. While we've been examining myths and tragic realities, there's another dark aspect of Aokigahara that occupies the space between legend and documented fact. Its alleged use by criminal organizations for body disposal. Across various online platforms, numerous individuals have shared accounts of witnessing gang members transporting large bags into the forest and disappearing thereafter. Bags purportedly large enough to accommodate a human body. This raises compelling questions. Could a gang member realistically dispose of a body in such unforgiving terrain and safely make their way out? How much truth exists in these accounts? As it turns out, there is documented truth to this narrative, but not quite in the way the urban legends suggest. Writer Murata Ramu, renowned for his coverage of Aokigahara, once ventured into the forest with a known gang member for a magazine feature titled Returning to the Scene of the Crime with the Criminal. What emerged from this expedition was a story that was both more and less sinister than the typical body disposal narrative. The gang member hadn't brought a body to the forest for disposal. He had committed murder within Aokigahara itself. According to his account, the victim had initially attempted to kill him, encroaching upon his territory. When the victim's attempts proved futile, the gang member retaliated with lethal force. The plan was chillingly calculated. The gang member, along with a subordinate and the still-living victim, accessed the forest through the Lake Say Bat Cave parking area. They coerced the victim to walk into the forest under his own power. Carrying a body through that treacherous terrain would have been far too cumbersome. Once deep enough in the woods, they killed him by forcibly hanging him. But here's where the plan went awry. The gang member wanted the body to be discovered. His intention was for the death to be reported as a suicide, thereby sending a potent warning to his rivals and subordinates not to challenge him. Instead, when the body was found, police suspected foul play, leading to his arrest. This incident reveals the brutal calculus behind such crimes. Navigating through the dense forest at night is extraordinarily challenging, even with flashlights providing minimal illumination. Yet they succeeded in venturing a significant distance into the forest and making their way back out. A testament to both their determination and the forest's accessibility to those who know what they're doing. Perhaps most intriguingly, when Murata questioned the gang member about fears he might harbor, this individual who had committed premeditated murder candidly admitted to fearing ghosts. He even claimed, with visible tremors, that a ghost was accompanying them at that precise moment, a reaction Murata described as genuine terror. Whether such occurrences are common remains speculative. The intricate challenge of maneuvering in and out of the forest, particularly under cover of night, combined with the logistics of transporting a body, makes it an impractical method for most criminal operations. This very reason drove the aforementioned gang member to make his victim walk to his own execution. Can it be conclusively asserted that such incidents have never transpired beyond this documented case? Certainly not. But is it as widespread as urban legend suggests? Probably not. The Yakuza have far more accessible methods for body disposal that don't necessitate the journey to Aokigahara, which is a significant distance from most Yakuza operational centers. The documented case serves as a reminder that Aokigahara's isolation and disorienting environment can attract those with the darkest intentions. But it also demonstrates that the forest itself often frustrates even criminal plans. Its very difficulty of navigation that makes it seem like an ideal place to hide evidence also makes it impractical for regular criminal use. This criminal dimension adds another layer to Aokigahara's dark reputation, showing how the forest's natural characteristics can attract not just the tragically desperate, but also those who would exploit its isolation for violent purposes. Our journey through Aokigahara's mysteries wouldn't be complete without examining one of the most haunting legends associated with the Mount Fuji region, the practice of Ubasute, or abandoning the elderly. According to folklore, Ubasute was an ancient custom employed during times of dire hardship. Families, unable to support their elderly relatives during periods of extreme scarcity, supposedly left them in remote mountainous areas to perish. While there are no official records confirming the widespread occurrence of Ubasute, the story persists in cultural narratives and has become intertwined with Aokigahara's mystique. The practice remains historically ambiguous. Some scholars believe Ubasute was merely an urban legend, a cautionary tale created over time. Others suggest it was real but rare, employed only during the most extreme hardships. Aokigahara, with its dense, disorienting atmosphere, has often been suggested as a potential site for such abandonment, though there's no consensus that it was the primary location for this practice. Contemporary popular culture has embraced this legend. The 2016 film The Forest depicts Mount Fuji as an Ubasute Yama, a mountain where the elderly were abandoned, portraying spirits of the forsaken, including elderly women, as part of the tormented souls believed to inhabit the forest due to past transgressions. The most specific location tied to Ubasute legend is a cave known as the Ubasute Cave, or Banba Ana, which translates roughly to Old Lady Hole. This cave, formed by volcanic activity from Mount Fuji's eruptions, is situated southwest of the mountain, notably not within Aokigahara itself. The cave reportedly measures approximately 1 meter wide and 10 meters deep, though measurements vary depending on the source. Currently secured with barbed wire to prevent accidents, this cave is steeped in tales of abandonment dating back to the Edo period. Legends speak of eerie encounters, with ghostly hands allegedly reaching out to grab unsuspecting passers-by, adding to the cave's haunted reputation among ghost hunters and those claiming supernatural encounters. Investigation of the cave has yielded bones, but rather than indicating mass abandonment, only a few human bones alongside chicken remains were discovered, likely those of an unfortunate individual from the Edo period. Given the cave's dimensions and history, the possibility of accidental falls cannot be discounted, further complicating the legend's credibility. Interestingly, another cave situated to the north, also called Banba Ana, but written with different kanji characters, shares a similar narrative involving elderly abandonment. These two caves, despite their shared names and legends, often create confusion in stories about Ubasute, though neither is actually located within Aokigahara itself. The connection between Ubasute and Aokigahara becomes more theoretical when you consider the practical challenges. Venturing even 20 or 30 meters into the dense forest, one might envision scenarios where someone could abandon an elderly person, but escaping oneself unscathed from such an endeavor would have been extraordinarily difficult. Even today, navigating Aokigahara poses significant challenges, with its natural mazes and terrain that can bewilder even GPS devices. For an elderly person during the Edo period, already physically frail and likely malnourished, survival would have been virtually impossible. But the same treacherous conditions would have made it equally dangerous for those attempting to abandon someone and then find their way back to safety. The truth about whether Ubasute practices actually occurred in Aokigahara remains unattainable through concrete evidence. These narratives survive through folklore rather than indisputable documentation. However, their presence in cultural memory serves to enhance the forest's haunting legacy and contributes to its supernatural reputation. What these legends reveal is how Aokigahara has become a repository for Japan's darkest cultural anxieties, a place where the most terrible aspects of human desperation and abandonment can be projected and explored safely through story. Whether these practices occurred or not, their association with the forest speaks to something deeper about how societies process collective trauma and moral complexity through landscape and legend. As we near the end of our journey through Aokigahara's mysteries, we encounter perhaps its most enigmatic spiritual dimension, the story of Kentoku Dojo and the search for transcendence within the forest's depths. During Japan's Edo period, the worship of Mount Fuji gained immense popularity, attracting ascetics and worshippers who traveled great distances to visit this majestic peak. Mountain worship has been integral to Japanese culture for centuries, and Mount Fuji, being the country's highest mountain, naturally became a focal point for spiritual activities. Numerous shrines, temples, and religious cults emerged around the mountain, inspired by its grandeur and spiritual significance. Among those drawn to Mount Fuji was a monk named Seigyo, who felt a particular connection to a specific cave within Aokigahara Forest, known as Shoji no O-ana, centrally located in the woodland. Seigyo's story is one of ultimate spiritual dedication. He succeeded in his pursuit of sokushinbutsu, self-mummification, by crawling deep into this cave. For 50 days, Seigyo engaged in intense religious training in the small, confined space, ultimately achieving his goal of self-mummification. His sacrifice didn't go unnoticed. People erected a temple near the cave and installed a stone monument within it to honor and memorialize his commitment. Though many ancient graves dot the area around the cave, the whereabouts of the original temple remains unknown. Centuries later, in the aftermath of Japan's defeat in World War II, another individual was profoundly impacted by this same cave. This person was a former soldier who had initially planned to end his life in the mysterious forest. However, after wandering in Aokigahara for a decade, he discovered Seigyo's cave and felt mysteriously compelled to dedicate himself to building a dojo there. The local community supported him in this endeavor, emphasizing their unwillingness to let him perish in solitude. Thus was born Kentoku Dojo, where the former soldier began his own ascetic training. But this modern monk's aspirations differed dramatically from traditional Buddhist practices. His vision was simultaneously more ambitious and more bizarre than Seigyo's spiritual pursuits. He garnered followers who journeyed to Mount Fuji on pilgrimage, though the challenging terrain leading to the dojo eventually deterred many visitors, resulting in dwindling numbers over time. Those who did interact with him learned that the monk was engaged in a major project in preparation for the arrival of the gods. He spoke with awe about Japan being a unique land inhabited by millions of deities governing the skies. The monk claimed to communicate directly with these gods, who had revealed to him their origins from a realm distinct and separate from Earth, a place devoid of humankind. According to his teachings, Kentoku Dojo served as a sanctuary for individuals to ready themselves for the eventual appearance of these celestial beings, a time that would mark the end of humanity's reign on Earth. In contrast to Seigyo's traditional religious undertakings, this former soldier devoted himself to ideas involving transcendent knowledge that incorporated an extraterrestrial dimension. The monk's whereabouts are unknown today, as he hasn't been seen for nearly 10 years. Whether age finally caught up with him, he departed from this world, or he simply disappeared deeper into the forest, his fate remains a mystery. The dojo he constructed with hopes of enlightening others now stands unoccupied, serving as a recurring landmark and tourist destination for those venturing into Aokigahara's enigmatic depths. This spiritual dimension of Aokigahara reveals another facet of the forest's strange magnetism. It's not just a place of tragedy or mystery. It's also been a destination for those seeking the ultimate spiritual experience, whether through traditional Buddhist practice or more esoteric pursuits involving extraterrestrial contact. The fact that both a medieval monk and a modern former soldier found the same cave spiritually significant speaks to something deeper about certain locations within the forest. Perhaps there are places where the combination of isolation, natural beauty, and geological strangeness creates an environment conducive to profound spiritual experiences, or spiritual delusions. As our exploration of Aokigahara draws to a close, we find ourselves confronting a fundamental question. What is it about this place that continues to captivate and terrify us? We've journeyed through geological time, witnessing the violent birth of this forest from Mount Fuji's ancient eruptions. We've separated fact from fiction, debunking myths about compass failures and wild dog packs, while uncovering the more mundane but equally fascinating truths behind phantom paths and historical practices. We've confronted the tragic reality that has made Aokigahara infamous, its association with suicide, and discovered how the forest's very characteristics that seem to offer escape from the world also make it a place where people can simply vanish. We've seen how these same characteristics have occasionally attracted those with criminal intent, though the forest's difficulty often frustrates even the darkest plans. We've explored legends of ancient abandonment practices and modern spiritual quests, finding in both a reflection of humanity's complex relationship with wild spaces, places where we project our deepest fears and highest aspirations. What emerges from this investigation is a picture of Aokigahara as a place where the natural and supernatural, the tragic and transcendent, the ancient and modern all converge. It's a location where volcanic fury created a landscape so alien that it seems to exist outside normal reality, where the boundaries between myth and truth become blurred by the forest's own disorienting power. The legends surrounding Aokigahara tell us as much about human psychology as they do about the forest itself. Our tendency to create supernatural explanations for natural phenomena, our need to find meaning in tragedy, our fascination with places that exist at the margins of our understood world. All of these impulses converge in the stories we tell about this enigmatic woodland. Perhaps that's the ultimate truth about Aokigahara. It serves as a mirror for our collective unconscious, reflecting back our deepest fears and most profound questions about life, death, and what lies beyond the boundaries of human understanding. The forest doesn't judge these projections. It simply exists, ancient and indifferent, shaped by forces far older and more powerful than human emotion. But within its silence, we hear echoes of every story we've told ourselves about the darkness that exists at the edges of civilization. In its twisted paths, we see reflections of the maze-like nature of human experience itself. How easily we can become lost, how desperately we seek meaning, and how the search for answers often leads us deeper into mystery rather than toward clarity. Aokigahara remains what it has always been, a testament to the power of landscape to shape human imagination, and a reminder that some places on Earth will forever resist our attempts to fully understand or explain them. In that resistance, perhaps, lies their greatest gift to us, the preservation of genuine mystery in an age that often seems to have explained everything away. The sea of trees continues to whisper its secrets to the wind, and we continue to listen, drawn by forces we can name but never fully comprehend. And maybe that's exactly as it should be. I'm your host, Ryan Martin, and thank you for joining me on yet another exciting episode on The Conspiracy Tapes. If you've enjoyed this deep dive into Aokigahara, make sure to subscribe for more explorations of the strange, the unexplained, and the fascinating places where reality and legend intersect. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. And if you want to stay updated with our library of 1,000-plus podcasts, download Scoob app from App Store and Play Store for free. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and remember, some mysteries are worth preserving.